Last night, Belvers brought us the breaking news in sport that AFC Bournemouth had lost their fight to avoid going into administration. Belvers, you've been to Dean Court today, of course. What's the latest?
Bournemouth at the bottom of League One again tonight, Fred. The club has debts of more than £4 million and is up for sale. But it's not all doom and gloom. There's a positive and optimistic air tonight as former Leeds chairman Gerald Krasner takes control. He's the administrator and believes he can and will find a buyer or buyers who will leave the club debt-free and with a bright future. Initially, he has 8 weeks, but only because under fire chairman Jeff Mostyn invested another six-figure sum of his own money this morning.
Without that funding, this club would not have gone beyond Sunday, in my opinion. And next week you could have seen the liquidation and extinction of Bournemouth Football Club.
I could have walked away from this football club when I met Gerald earlier in the week and said enough's enough. That's not my style. I'm quite happy and proud of the fact that I've been able to provide sufficient funds to give this football club a lifeline and a way forward.
Paul, we know Bournemouth have been in financial trouble now for some years. When did it all start?
Many Cherries fans point to the 5th of May 1990. Leeds were in town on the final day of the season. They won the match, secured promotion, and a violent section of supporters went on the rampage. Bournemouth were relegated and landed with a £1 million repair bill. The full extent of their financial mess only emerged a couple of years later, though, and came to a head in late 1996. The receivers were called in, but fans raised thousands of pounds and took charge by forming Europe's first ever community club. The money troubles have never disappeared, though, and previous regimes have sold off nearly every asset: the stadium, conference facilities, even the half-time hot dogs.
There is no point in trying to encourage investors to put money into a dark hole. Without having those assets at our disposal, it was always going to be an impossible task. Administration, as far as I'm concerned, is not the end of this football club. It is the beginning of what I hope will be a bright future for the football club.
AFC Bournemouth kicked off another season in the Coca-Cola Football League, but this season was not like any other. After administration last year and a series of punishments given by the governing bodies, just 2 days before the season started, they found out they'd be starting on -17.
Unfortunately, it was 17 points. I mean, Will thought it was going to be 10, but you know, like you say, 17 was a big hit.
It's difficult, to be fair. It's hard, obviously, to start with minus like 10 the year before, but minus 17 this year was a big ask, you know. But I thought the lads reacted really well and was positive from day one.
We got nothing to really lose. I mean, you sort of expected to go down. So, but obviously, start of the season came and we didn't have the best of starts, to be fair.
The season curtain raiser saw Bournemouth at Dean Court with their opponents Gillingham. Things started well for Bournemouth, with Darren Anderton grabbing the club's first goal of the season with this fine individual effort just before half-time. But things ended badly for the Cherries when Gillingham broke late on to score a 93rd minute equaliser. Gary Mulligan got the visitors' goal, the late equaliser a sign of how tough this season was going to be. After being knocked out of the Carling Cup in the week by Cardiff, Bournemouth's first away game of the season was at local rivals Aldershot. The Shots took the lead midway through the second half when Louis Soares scored from close range. Bournemouth, though, salvaged a point through Ricky Sappleton in this full-blooded local clash. So after 2 games, Bournemouth had 2 points, but in their situation, they needed more.
So Bournemouth carried on searching for their first win of the season, but it wasn't to come at home to Exeter either. Ryan Harley finished off this passing move, leaving Bournemouth flattened by their poor start to the campaign.
All the little knocks you get though through the start of the season and throughout the whole season, when you're minus 17, you just got to brush them off and go again. You know, it's game by game. You just got to try and win every game, to be honest. And it does change your mentality a little bit because draws aren't really any good to you. You want to win games, especially when teams around you. I think Rotherham had a flying start. They went off and they were up to in the plus early doors, you know, and left us standing, and it was a bit of a shock. But obviously we had a good end of the season, so it sort of swings and roundabouts really.
The momentum of winning wasn't with us, unfortunately, at that point. I think we had obviously drew the first two, and then the defeat at Port Vale was a low. You know, we expected to get something from the game, and we didn't. And like you say, it was Kevin's last game.
After just 3 league games and a disastrous start to the season, Kevin Bond's last match as Bournemouth manager came away at Vale Park. Vale took the first half lead here through Mark Richards. But Bournemouth managed to equalise early in the second half with Craig Linfield's close-range header. That was his first goal for the club. Hopes of a first win, though, were dashed just 6 minutes later when Mark Richards got his second to give Port Vale the lead. Then just 2 minutes later, they made it 3-1 through John McCoon. By the end of August, Bournemouth were already 8 points adrift and things were not looking good.
A new month, a new manager and a new air of optimism around Dean Court. After replacing Sean O'Driscoll in September 2006, Kevin Bond was sacked just 4 games into the season and started the month with a bang.
It didn't take long. First football manager of the season to get the sack, and he's one of ours.
Afraid so, yes. The new owners at Dean Court have taken just 6 weeks to put their own stamp on the football club and bring in their own man to take charge of the first team. Jimmy Quinn has previously managed Reading, Swindon and Shrewsbury before leading Cambridge to the conference playoff finals last season. He takes over from Kevin Bond, who was sacked after a 4.5-hour emergency meeting at Dean Court yesterday evening, along with his coaching team of Rob Newman and Eddie Howe.
He nearly guided the club to the greatest of great escapes last season, but then had to sell key players, and after no wins in their first 4 league games of this campaign, the new owners have shown a ruthless streak.
We had to make a decision, and that decision was I couldn't take the risk of leaving it another 4 games because clearly 8 games would have been disaster. 4 games is tough, but I saw nothing from the last 2 games that gives me any hope that Kevin could turn that team round.
In comes former Northern Ireland international Jimmy Quinn, who played for the Cherries between 1991 and 92 and nearly returned as player coach in 97.
I just feel, having watched the game last week, that we probably need to be a little bit more predictable in our play. We need to get balls in the box, we need to have take more responsibility, get shots away to go. I've never seen a shot until late on in the game. I am a players manager, I like players to come in with a smile on the face and be happy, but with one eye on making sure the discipline's right and they're focused on hard work.
Quinn scored 23 goals in 54 games in his 1 season with the Cherries when he played alongside the man he's replacing in the Dean Court dugout. He was sold to Reading, where he became the most prolific striker in the entire Football League in '94, when he then became the club's player manager and just missed out on promotion to the Premiership. His next coaching job was at Swindon, a club which had dire financial problems, sold key players, still slipped into administration and was relegated.
I honestly don't think even if Alex Ferguson had been managing Swindon Town that he would have done any better.
Bournemouth fans know all about this kind of off-the-pitch crisis, but they and the new manager are assured those sorts of days are behind the Cherries now.
There's not multi-millions of pounds there to spend. You've got to be realistic and work within budget guidelines. I understand that. But my aim regarding the players that we've got here is to get the very best out of them.
Jimmy's joined by another former player, Jason Tindall. He made nearly 200 appearances under Sean O'Driscoll, but suffered a serious knee injury in 2003. He became manager at Weymouth 18 months ago, but was sacked after a year and then worked with Quinn at Cambridge.
We've got to work hard to get out of the mess what we're in, as well as working hard. It'd be enjoyable, it'd be constructive, and you know, we'll all be sort of together in getting ourselves out of the position that we're in now.
The new manager and his assistant will meet the squad in the dressing room before tonight's Johnston's Paint Trophy tie, but will then watch the match from the stands. Head of youth Joe Roach will take charge against Bristol Rovers, who are without ex-Cherry striker Joe Kaffour because of injury.
When a new manager does come in, it gives everyone a sort of a lift, because if you're not playing, you feel that if you impress the new manager, you can start playing, and you just have to impress. Everyone gets a lift because they know they have to impress, because they want to be in the starting 11 and be in the squad. And I mean, as you've seen the whole year, people have come in and out. They've done a great job. But as I say, that month was a big month for me.
It was strange because obviously I was with Jimmy for the last few months of last season at Cambridge, and you know, we done very well there together, and then you know, we was in contact with each other all the way through the summer, and there was a few irons in the fire that he was talking about, and when this opportunity come along for him, it was obviously a great opportunity, and for myself, you know, it couldn't have been better. I'm a Bournemouth fan. I've lived here for a long time now, and it was just a dream job.
It was like the start of a season with a new manager. You just had to try and impress. Every player was there. It was their chance to impress again. Luckily for me, I kept my place in the team. But again, we didn't do as well. I think we've done a little bit better under Jimmy Quinn, but still weren't up to what we knew we could do.
Well, he watched from the stand as Bournemouth beat Bristol Rovers in the Johnston's Paint Trophy, but Notts County away was Jimmy Quinn's first match picking the team. Just 12 minutes in, Notts County's Jamie Forrester scored with that stunning volley, but the team responded well under the new management duo. The Cherries carved out this equaliser just 7 minutes later, Scott Wagstaff crossing with Brett Pittman on the end of it.
That first league win was still elusive for Bournemouth as they reached the middle of September, and it wasn't to come at home to Macclesfield either. Keith Alexander's team, who sat 16th in the table, scored in their first attack of the game through Gareth Evans. They then defended for the next 90 minutes. Despite being reduced to 10 men, they held out for the win.
Bournemouth's tough start to the season was forgotten at Valley Parade. This was Bournemouth's first win, and they did it in style. Third place Bradford was stunned just before half-time when Danny Hollands gave Cherries the lead with this far post header. But City equalised quickly on the stroke of half-time in response when Joe Colbeck scored this goal. With things level at the break, an exciting second half was in store for the 13,000 watching fans, but it was the important next goal coming from Bournemouth, with Jeff Goulding scoring this superb shot, his first career league goal. Jason Pearce completed the victory late on with his first goal of the season to seal a massive 3 points for the team.
Scored a header from Wally's cross, so that was great. Was really pleased with that, and to go to Bradford, one of the biggest teams in the league, to score as well and win the game, which is more important to win, but was a great turning point.
When we played Bradford away, I think that's when it really clicked, you know, defensively and attacking wise. So I think it was, you know, that's when the lads started to believe that we could do it.
We beat them 3-1 and really did sort of play off the park, and it was a big boost because I think they're one of the bigger teams in the league, and we sort of showed ourselves what we could do, because obviously a lot of us haven't sort of played League Two. We've played sort of the last few years in League One, so it was a big positive, and positive for me to get the first goal of the season, and just nice to be back playing because I think it was one of my first games back as well.
Things were on the up for the Cherries, and they continued their fine form in front of the Dean Court faithful with a visit of Darlington. Marvin Bartley opened the scoring, netting his first goal of the season. But Dave Penny's side equalised 20 minutes later with Liam Hatch's looping header. Then Sammy Igoe managed to score after deflecting this pass into the back of the net just before half-time. The final touch came from Darlington defender Neil Austin. The game was settled late on with this move. Josh McQuoid setting up Brett Pittman for his second goal of the season. Another 3-1 win for Bournemouth and another vital 3 points.
Bournemouth were riding high after 2 back-to-back wins to finish the month. The same was expected for October, but they had a series of challenging games in store, and it wasn't going to be easy.
For the start of October, Bournemouth were brought back down to earth by top-of-the-table Wycombe at Adams Park. Another 3-1 scoreline, but this time Bournemouth on the wrong end of it. Major decisions go against the Cherries, and then 40 minutes in, Matt Harrold scores this scuffed goal. But Bournemouth managed to respond well with Danny Hollands to put the Cherries back on level terms early in the second half. But hopes of another Bournemouth win were dashed just 3 minutes later when winger Chris Zabrowski managed to somehow squeeze this past Shwan Jalal. Scott McGleish rounded off the day with this header 6 minutes from time with Wycombe's third.
For Rotherham's visit, 3 points were a must, with Bournemouth already 7 points adrift of their relegation rivals. Neither team could find the back of the net in this entertaining draw, but a fine footballing display left Bournemouth fans optimistic for the future.
That gave us a further spell. I mean, it was a disappointment because we absolutely battered them. I think that was the most one-sided 0-0 that I've ever played against. I mean, I hardly had anything to do, but it was just one of those things. It gave us hope again. You know, Rotherham were probably already out of it by then, I would have thought, but you know, we just knew that we had it in us to do it.
Another away game at another high-flying team and another bad result. Shrewsbury raced into a 3-0 interval lead. The first from Gylfi Sigurdsson. The second and third both came from Ben Davis. Brett Pittman managed to pull one back for Bournemouth with this fine goal, managing to bring down Lee Bradbury's superb cross before slotting past the helpless Luke Daniels. Joel Ward was then sent off for the Cherries before Shrewsbury got a fourth and final goal thanks to Richard Walker, the result leaving food for thought for Bournemouth defensively.
Obviously, we've been trying to keep it tight defensively, and to lose 4-1 away was obviously hugely disappointing, and that was a massive knockback. But obviously, we had to sort of look at the game and see where we went wrong, and then try and improve on that.
And improve on that they did. This match, the start of 5 home games for Bournemouth. Lee Bradbury's deflected shot gave Bournemouth the ideal start at home to Dagenham. With Brett Pittman then adding a second after scoring from Danny Hollands' near-post cross. The Daggers pulled one back after the interval, but it was too little, too late for John Still's team. This win still left Bournemouth 9 points adrift of safety, but thankfully with 4 back-to-back home games on the horizon.
Ended up getting a goal, I think, from full-back, cutting inside, took a little deflection off someone, I think, and went in. But yeah, it was a good turning point for us and a good result for us as well. A difficult side to beat, you know, and it was sort of the turning point for me, I think, in my season, and give me a bit of confidence to kick on and try and get some more goals.
The build-up to Bournemouth's match with Lincoln was dominated by a boardroom reshuffle as both Jeff Mostyn and Steve Sly stepped down. On the pitch, things weren't going great either. A disappointing performance left Bournemouth beaten, battered and bruised.
November was a month of important league games against teams also bidding to avoid League Two relegation. Good results in matches at Grimsby, Accrington and Morecambe meant the Cherries could claw back points in their bid to avoid relegation.
After the disappointing result at home to Lincoln the week before, the Cherries had the chance to respond a week later at home to Chesterfield, but the Bournemouth fans were left wanting once again. Lloyd Kerry scored this midway through the first half. Before Bournemouth were handed a lifeline in the 82nd minute, thanks to Alan Goodall, who turned Darren Anderton's looping header into his own net.
After a continued series of disappointing results in the league, the Cherries needed to get something from the match at Accrington, but this very quickly became another game to forget. Bournemouth found themselves down 3-0 inside 20 minutes. Paul Mullin got the first after just 3 minutes. Terry Gornall followed with the second. And then Roston Griffiths hit a Stanley stunner for the third. Bournemouth's next match away at Grimsby was going to be massive.
When we went up there, we sort of felt that we could beat them, and I think that day, if anyone watching the game, it wasn't really a 3-0 game, and we started off really positive. And I think all 3 of their goals, I mean, one of them was a wonder strike and the other 2 was sort of I think Marvin made a tackle and sort of put someone through, which usually wouldn't happen, and a deflection for the other one. So it was a bit of a hard game for us, really. I mean, because we come out, we were all a bit deflated, and it was sort of one of them again. You look at the table and you think, oh no, here we go again. It's going to be another difficult next few weeks sort of thing. So I think we had another few tough games. But as I say, we've stuck together and we've done well with the low points we've had in the year.
Jimmy Quinn had the team boxing before their match with the Mariners, and it seemed to have a positive influence on the team's performance. Lee Bradbury got pushed back up front and gave the Cherries the lead. But they then somehow fall 3-1 behind. 2 quick-fire goals just before half-time from Jamie Clark and Ryan Bennett give Grimsby a 2-1 half-time lead. They then made it 3 early in the second half. Rob Atkinson gets his first goal of the season from that corner. With the prospect of being cut adrift and facing relegation, the Cherries knew they had to get something from the game. Anderton managed to find himself in the right place at the right time to pounce on goalkeeper Phil Barnes' mistake to start the Bournemouth fight back. And despite being down to 10 men after Scott Guyot sending off, Lee Bradbury again managed to draw the Cherries level to leave it balanced at 3-3. Neither team could find a winner within the remaining seconds of the game.
Away to Grimsby, played up front, scored the first goal within about 10 minutes, I think. And then we went 3-2 down and popped up with the equaliser in the last couple of minutes. So that was a massive goal looking back at
it. With Bournemouth having not won a league game since the middle of October, the home match with Morecambe was seen as an ideal opportunity to turn results around. But once again, a disappointing performance saw the game finish 0-0 in front of one of the lowest league attendances since moving into the new stadium.
Each game you sort of come off the pitch, you sort of giving your all, and the performance not quite there, and the result isn't there. And then you look at the other teams as well, and they're sort of picking up little points here and there, and it's just not looking good. But again, you just had to keep believing that we could get there, and I think we kept that belief within the squad.
With Bournemouth balancing on a knife edge, the festive period was going to be make or break for Jimmy Quinn's squad. The Bournemouth boss signed Mark Molesley and Michael Symes to help us cover, with their first game of the month away at Luton.
The original fixture had to be abandoned due to the weather, and after just 18 minutes at Kenilworth Road, the Cherries would have been hoping for the same again. Defender Ryan Gary somehow managed to squeeze this cross into his own net. Despite the disappointing start, Mark Molesley was determined to make a difference, and just 2 minutes later, he managed to draw Bournemouth level by squeezing this shot in at the near post. And it seemed Molesley was in a different league during the course of this match. He then gave Bournemouth the lead with this stunning goal just after the break. Kevin Gallen then scored for Luton to make it 2-2. But once again, Bournemouth fought back to ensure they would be leaving Kenilworth Road with what looked like being a massive 3 points. Matt Tubbs, on loan from Salisbury, heading home from close range. But with just 5 minutes remaining, Luton scored from the penalty spot to take a share of the spoils. Paul McVeigh converting past Shwan Jalal. And that point meant Bournemouth were now on 0 after their 17-point deduction.
My own goal was quite special. I mean, we battered them first half really. You know, we came out of the traps real quick, and like you say, we went one down, and then obviously we came back into the game, and that's probably that stage of the season that probably summed us up what we was like around that time. I mean, we was never really killing teams off when we had the chance to, and like you say, it ended up 3-3, and you know, looking back, it's a game that we all thought that we should have won.
Just 2 days before the game at home to Chester, Darren Anderton announced the match was to be his last after an 18-year career which has seen him start and finish on the South Coast. On as a second-half sub, Anderton scored this peach to put the Cherries into positive points and for him to sign off in style.
After 4 points from their last 2 games, Bournemouth couldn't continue their good run away at Rochdale. That was despite taking the lead through Lee Bradby from the spot after Matt Tubbs had been brought down in the box. Rochdale managed to grab a 67th minute equaliser through Adam Lafondra. Bournemouth's next match, their cup game at Blythe.
Rochdale went and drew them 1-1, and they looked probably the best team we've played this year, really. And it was good to go there and get a point. So it started off positive, but then, as you say, sort of going to Blythe, it was probably the lowest point of my career. I mean, it was horrible. I mean, in the game here, we should have beaten them and had it wrapped up, but then to go there and obviously lose 1-0, it was a mega disappointment, because obviously a home tie against the Premier League team in the next round was waiting for us, and just to, I mean, I think they're sort of 3 or 4 leagues below us, so it was a real massive disappointment for the whole club, and I think that it made the lads sort of stand up and sort of have a right think about not just that game but the rest of the season.
There was great celebration last night. Unfortunately, this is non-league Blythe Spartans' changing room after they knocked Bournemouth out of the FA Cup. Elsewhere, Brighton made it through to a cup final. But first, yes, it's bliss for Blythe, but bitterness for Bournemouth. Bournemouth manager Jimmy Quinn said after this defeat it was the worst he's ever felt in football. First, he lost Sean Cooper to a dislocated shoulder. He'll be out during the busy Christmas period. Then the team lost Brett Pittman, who was shown a red card just 3 minutes after coming on as a sub. And then with a minute to go, part-timers Blythe Spartans scored through Jed Dalton. The goal earning them a guaranteed £250,000 windfall thanks to the televised match with Blackburn Rovers in the next round.
Bournemouth's next match saw them at home to Bury, with Carl Preston and Joe Partington making their full debut. This was a brilliant display against second-place Bury at Dean Court. Experienced winger Sammy Igo gave Bournemouth the lead, before Matt Tubbs set up Partington to score his first Cherries goal just before half-time. Bournemouth held out in the second half for another 3 points.
Bournemouth were on the move and had managed to cut the gap to just 6 points as they took on Brentford at Griffin Park, but their good run was about to come to an end. 2 first-half goals from Marcus Bean saw Bournemouth lose their first league game of the month. Bournemouth had a few half chances but never looked like breaching the division's meanest defence. Their next match was at home to Barnet.
The Barnet game in the first half, we was all, I can't even put it into words, we was on top. I mean, obviously we've had a few cleared off the line, we hit the bar, but we dominated them for the whole first half.
Things were about to get worse for Bournemouth fans, as it was certainly a Christmas to forget. Albert Ademoah had scored 2 breakaway goals for the Londoners, which left the Cherries 10 points from safety. Changes were needed and changes were made. It will be a New Year's Eve to remember for Eddie Howe.
For them to come away winning 2-0 was a massive disappointment for us, because we felt that obviously we were the better team, and when you do lose games, especially in the position we are, it's a big disappointment. But as I say, we've had so many low points this year that we've had to sort of come back fighting, and I think that we did within the next sort of few games after that.
The new year brings a new manager and a new owner to AFC Bournemouth. Out goes Jimmy Quinn. After 4 months and 24 games at the club, he was sacked on New Year's Eve, with the Cherries still in the bottom 2 and in grave danger of dropping out of the Football League. Chairman Paul Baker has also gone. He sold his share in the club to a consortium headed by Bournemouth-based businessman Adam Murray. Former defender and first-team coach Eddie Howe takes charge of the side at Darlington tomorrow and will be given the job full-time if results and performances improve.
New Year's Eve you get a phone call and get asked to be manager, so a fantastic feeling, and the sort of reality hits you, what the size of the task. But I'm relishing it, and it's I've enjoyed the 2 days. Haven't stopped being on my phone. I think that's most managers are the same, on the phone constantly. But it's all part of the job, and I can't wait to get started and have the first game.
Eddie's a good guy. He's very tactical. He's experienced, and we've got a lot of confidence in Eddie. The job's there now for him to lose, as opposed to a caretaker, and he's eager to get started as well. And we're looking forward to him producing results on the pitch.
I really care about the club. I'm desperate to see it stay in the Football League. First and foremost, that's the task. That's the objective. Try and win some games. And see where we go from there.
Eddie Howe's first match as boss saw the team travel to Darlington, where they couldn't have got off to a better start. Marvin Bartley set up Danny Hollands for the opener. But heartbreak was to follow, as 2 late Darlington goals consigned the Cherries to defeat. Their first came through experienced striker Pavel Abbott. With Darlow's winner a controversial late penalty that was converted by Rob Purdy. Eddie Howe's first match ending in disappointment, but Eddie had something up his sleeve to turn things around.
The Darlington game was heartbreaking, really. 1-0 up for long spells and could have made it 2. They scored 2 late on. Very disappointed, because it was another game slipped away. We hadn't got anything, and then the Rotherham game down to 10 men for half an hour, and we were much the better side. So it was 2 tough defeats and 2 tough away games. We knew they were tough games. And then we had tough fixtures coming up. I think we had Wycombe at home as our next game.
Today we've been talking to the man who is officially the Football League's youngest manager. At 31, Bournemouth boss Eddie Howe is younger than a couple of his players, and he's now hoping to bring 35-year-old striker Steve Fletcher back to the club. He just needs to persuade Fletcher's current boss at Crawley to let him go. Howe says his age is the last thing on his mind.
I felt we needed a presence up front, and I felt we needed Fletch. I've said it many times, it's not only just on the pitch, it would have been off the pitch as well. Team spirit in the dressing room, he's a leader, he's a talker, and I felt we needed him, and that's why I was so keen to bring him back. Once I made the decision in my own mind, yeah, that's the right thing to do, I was desperate to get him as quickly as I could.
I actually played against him when I was at Eastbourne. He played for Crawley, and it was kind of the first time I saw him and whatnot, and he gave me a firm handshake after. And then obviously he calmed down, which was great, and everyone knows the rest of the story, which has been fantastic.
But when he come back, it's just a massive boost for the club, obviously the fans and everyone around the place. And he's such a great guy to have around. He's great experience, and he's been pivotal in the push towards the end of the season.
Eddie phoned me and said, "Biggin, would you be interested in coming back?" And I thought he was joking. And I said to him, "Are you off your head? Of course I would." I said, "But it's not going to happen, is it?" I said, I was playing at the time at Crawley, and the team were doing well, we're in the playoff positions, and I didn't think for 1 minute the manager would relieve me of my contract. And he kept pushing me, Eddie kept pushing me, and every day on the phone, 2 and 3 times a day, "Fletch, have you asked him? Have you asked him?" And I'm like, "Well, you ask him, you phone the manager, Steve Evans." And eventually I went into the office, and he's not an easy man to go in and speak to at the best of times, Mr. Evans. And I told him about it, and then Eddie phoned him, and he, to be fair to him, he come up to me, Steve Evans, and he said, "Eddie's phoned me about you," and I had to pretend I hadn't been speaking to Eddie. And I'm like, "Oh, really? That's interesting." And he said, "What do you think about it?" Blah, blah, blah. And I said, "Well, it's Bournemouth, so I'm obviously, it's the only thing I can think about." And I had a few sleepless nights after that. And about 10 days later, I think Eddie wanted to know yes or no either way, basically. It was just before the Wycombe game. It was at the Thursday. And I went into the office of Steve Evans and I said, "Look, Eddie wants to know, is it going to happen or if it isn't?" I said, "I need to put it to rest. It's the only thing that's been on my mind." He said, "Give me 24 hours and I'll try and find a striker to replace you." And thankfully he did. He came up to me and said, "Fletch, if it was any other club but Bournemouth," he said, "I couldn't even contemplate letting you go." He said, "But I know how much it means to you, what the club and everything associated with the club means to you and your family." He said, "And for you as a friend," the manager said, I'll let you out your contract and you can go and sign for Bournemouth." And still felt it wasn't going to happen all the way through Thursday night. You know, I mean, I must have had 3 or 4 hours sleep. That was it that night. And I came into the ground at 9:30 and still didn't think it was going to happen because I know it's just one of them fairy tale things. And by 10:15 I'd signed. By 10:30 I was out there training.
Well, Howe's yet to record his first win since taking over at New Year, and standing in his way this Saturday will be top of the table Wycombe Wanderers. They come to Dean Court slightly wounded after losing at home to Grimsby last weekend, who are themselves only just off the foot of the table.
Wycombe's going to be tough, they're top of the league. They've had a great season under Peter Taylor, so that's going to be a hard game. Hopefully the crowd will get behind us, that's the big thing I want to say. You know, the crowd are going to be massive. We need to make it a real atmosphere here, a real cauldron where people are thinking, "I don't want to go there, I don't want to go and play there, it's going to be tough."
Bournemouth's match at home to Wycombe saw the crowd rise by about 2,000 from previous league games. And with a new look lineup that included Fletch, Jake Thompson and Royce Wiggins, there was an air of expectancy around Dean Court. But things started off badly when David Button, on loan from Tottenham, slipped up to let Matt Harrold open the scoring. Urged on by a crowd of nearly 6,000, Bournemouth reacted positively. Brett Pittman scored that superb free kick. Before Jason Pearce then put the Cherries ahead 2-1 at the break from this corner. Wycombe fought back, but Bournemouth managed to hold out until the break. Jake Thompson's cross-come shot caught everybody out to make the score 3-1. So a new-look team, a great result, and for the first time, Bournemouth started to believe the great escape was on.
You look back and you think, yeah, it was a turning point. They were top of the league. I think it gave us huge confidence. We scored a couple of good goals. Brett scored a great free kick, and there was a good atmosphere within the ground as well. The fans really got behind us.
That was a great result. After going 1-0 down to a sloppy goal, it was a great achievement to come back. Brett kick-started it with one of the goals of the season, I think, with his free kick. So that was a great result, and it was good to do it against my ex-manager as well.
Another all-action game at Dean Court saw Luton go ahead through Danny Hollands' own goal. But he soon makes amends by scoring at the right end. His left-footed drive going into the top corner. There were chances for both sides throughout, with the Cherries indebted to Alan Connell for a late goal-line clearance.
Bournemouth's trip to Lincoln was without doubt one of the ones that got away. Another excellent performance from Eddie Howe's men, but unfortunately they only left with a point. Danny and Gesson opened the scoring for Lincoln, before Mark Molesley levelled the scoring with this superb strike. That was his third goal for Bournemouth. The Cherries then established a 2-goal lead through 2 Brett Pitman penalties. The first in the 65th minute, the second in the 77th. But then, disaster struck. Lee Beavers scored in the 86th minute. Then Lee Frecklington scored this equaliser in the 94th. It finished 3-3.
As a transfer window closed at the end of January, Eddie Howe managed to bolster his squad with the signings of Royce Wiggins. Liam Feeney came in from Salisbury, and Anton Robinson managed to make the deadline in time to join from Weymouth.
It was a case of all hands to the pump before this game, with groundsmen, office staff and supporters all helping to clear the pitch that was covered in snow at 8 o'clock in the morning. It was all worthwhile in the end though, as Brett Pitman scored direct from a corner, with the game seeing the debuts of Liam Feeney and Anton Robinson.
It was great, you know, when I think Bretty scored from the corner, and as the goal went in, we knew that, you know, we one goal up and we just need to lock it out and we get the 3 points. And I think ever since that game, we took the winning mentality and definitely got some good results along the way.
This game was a rare off day for a resurgent Bournemouth, but Brett Pitman managed to score this late winner just minutes after Accrington Stanley had themselves missed a penalty.
If they'd have put that penalty in, we probably might have got beat 1-0, and yet we go up the other end and Brett pops one in the roof of the net, great volley, and all of a sudden we're flying.
Back at one of Fletcher's former clubs, the Cherries were looking to continue their good run, but were hit early on through Jack Lester. Alan Connell missed a late penalty.
We went on a good little run, and then of course you had the odd setback along the way. You know, games like Chesterfield, we were disappointed to lose there. Felt we didn't deserve to, and there was other games, you know, we kept losing by the odd goal, and that was the real disappointment. But mixed in there, as you say, with some good performances as well. So it was a good time for us.
I remember we had a couple of good results, and then we got beat 1-0 off Chesterfield, I believe, and we had to play Dagenham, and it was 0-0, and you know we were hovering around, getting close to Chester and Grimsby, and I'm thinking, we've sort of hit a point and we can't get over it. And then Mark cut in down the left and down the right hand side, and everyone's screaming for him to pass it, and he bent it in with his left foot, and I think that was a pivotal moment in the season.
The Dagenham match away was one to remember for various reasons. Big Fletch made his 500th league appearance for the club, and it also saw Jason Tindall put back on a Cherry shirt. And it was Tindall that set up Mark Molesley, who scored this brilliant solo goal in the dying minutes to set off ecstatic celebrations from the travelling fans.
Like to see the crowd, the travelling fans that went there go mental, and we just as players we just went mad, and it was I think everyone really believed that was a turning point.
Dagenham, you know, was a great game when Molesley scored in the last minute. I think. You know, the game was just a battle from start go. It was a battle, and for Molesley to pick out that winner, was definitely a great feeling for the team.
Dagenham was very, very difficult. Maybe probably one of the turning points of the season, because so late on in the game we go and get a winner, and it gives you a massive boost because you think, right, next week you're feeling confident, feeling in a good mood.
But next week's match at Gillingham was a game to be forgotten. Having controlled much of it, the Cherries went down to a Nicky Southall goal on the 58th minute.
A much improved squad and a series of good results put the Cherries in a healthy position as the season came to a climax. Big Fletcher's influence was clear to see since his arrival, although as yet he hadn't scored a goal.
I think I'd went 7 or 8 games, if not more, before I scored, but I obviously wasn't too concerned because I know the team was doing well, and I'd come back in and I was creating chances, and not just that, I was helping out in the dressing room. I think it's one of the main reasons Eddie brought me back in, was to be a big character in the changing room, get the boys together, give them a lift. And I thought, well, as long as I'm doing that side of it, it don't matter if we keep winning and I'm not scoring, although it's nice to score, of course it is. And when I did get that goal against Aldershot, it was fantastic. It was a great move from the team and great ball in by Warren Cummins and trademark header at the back stick, and thankfully I was off the mark in another 2-0 victory, and we were pushing on at that stage as well, so everything was going honky-dory.
In atrocious conditions, the Cherries chalked up another thoroughly deserved win at home. This time Aldershot were the victims. Despite the strong wind and driving rain, Danny Holland struck this loose ball home to give the Cherries a 1-0 lead. Then, just after the break, came the moment that Bournemouth fans had been waiting for since he rejoined the club. Warren Cummings' cross found Fletch at the back post for him to head his first goal since returning home. Grimsby lost 1-0 at home to Brentford, so for the first time this season, Bournemouth were out of the relegation zone.
Bournemouth looked to follow that win with another, but dogged Vale held tight defensively to frustrate the Cherries. Grimsby, though, hit 4 late goals to beat Lincoln 5-1, and that put Bournemouth back in the bottom 2. This game finished 0-0.
Defensive mistakes saw Bournemouth go 1-0 down early on away at Exeter. Adam Stansfield capitalised on an unusual Ryan Gary mistake to give Exeter a 1-0 half-time lead. But Bournemouth put on a display to remember in the second half. Danny Hollands leapt on an Exeter defensive mistake to equalise the early Grecian strike. And from then on, the Cherries were in total control. Brett Pittman scored this wonder goal, and then just 3 minutes from time he gets his second, and Bournemouth's third, to round off a memorable night for the 754 travelling fans. Chester lose 5-1 at home to Rotherham, meaning Cherries leapfrog both them and Grimsby into 21st place.
Game stand out for me, especially turning points, was definitely Exeter. We was 1-0 down. The first half, or probably the first 20 minutes, I'll say, Ex are all over us. They actually bossed the game. Gaffer changed the formation round. I think we matched them up 3-5-2, and then it was just all us. And then second half, we come out all guns blazing and just turned the game around. And I think that just showed that how much it meant for us. You know, Exeter was one of the most informed teams, and we was playing at Exeter as well, so it was a massive game.
We needed to win that game to get out of the, or just get our heads above water, and I think put Grimsby back in our position, which would have been second from bottom. And we came in at half time, we'd absolutely been run ragged by Exeter. I thought they were fantastic, and I thought, here we go, but it's not going to happen. You know, I thought we've reached our point, and then we ain't going to be able to push on any further. And then we came out second half, and we were awesome, absolutely awesome. And then from that point on, I believe we were going to do it. I always believed it until the last game, but we'll talk about that later. But from that point, second half at Exeter, it totally changed my perception on things, because when we went in at half-time, I thought it's not going to happen. We've reached our point and we can push on, but we seem to do it in the end.
Another game, another win, this time at Macclesfield. Lee Bradbury returned from injury to bag 2 goals in the second half, the first that stunning volley just 5 minutes after half-time. Then 20 minutes later, he squeezed this shot past goalkeeper Johnny Brain. A massive 3 points at Moss Rose, which helped Cherries move further away from the League 2 relegation zone.
Bradford once again caught Bournemouth in fine form, and after winning 3-1 at Valley Parade, the Cherries started like a house on fire at Dean Court. Big Fletch put Bournemouth ahead on 4 minutes after that great passing move. But promotion hopeful City hit back through Matthew Clark. From then on though, the Cherries took control. 2 goals in 2 minutes confirmed the result by half-time. Steve Fletcher hits his second of the match. And then Jeff Goulding got his 3rd goal of the season to make it 3-1 just before the interval. Another early second-half goal from Goulding completed an excellent night, with the win seeing Bournemouth climb above Barnet in the table and also put a 7-point gap between the Cherries and Grimsby.
I think we'd had a 10-game period over 5 weeks, and it finished with Notts County at home. And if we'd have won it, we'd have went 10 points clear, and we didn't.
The game at home to Notts County was a rare off day for Eddie Howe's men, with this match their first home defeat of 2009. They were unable to break down a well-organised county side, where Miles Weston scored the only goal of the game.
Just felt like we couldn't put it to bed. As you say, the Notts County game was a huge one, and we'd had a lot of games and it probably caught up with us. And as you say, we just started to get dragged a little bit back into it, and again we knew we had tough fixtures coming up, so it was a nervy time, because we felt that if we could have put 2 or 3 results back to back, then we'd have dragged ourselves clear, but it wasn't to be.
The Cherries seemed to be derailing towards the end of March, and another game came and went with nothing to show for their efforts. Chances were few and far between in this match, but an error by Schwan Jalan proved costly, and Andy Morrell struck home into an empty net. April was do or die for Bournemouth. Every game bigger than the last, and every point massive. And with just 6 games left of the season, they needed to start the month off with a flyer.
You win a couple of games and you think you're clear, and then you lose the next couple and you're back down there fighting. So it's been a very, very difficult season. But as I say, we've stuck together really, really well. That's one of the main things that's kept us going, because when things have gone bad, we've sort of stuck together and we've sort of said, right, that's it. We've got to make another turning point of getting on a winning roll, and we've sort of done that. As I say, we lose 2 and then we go and pick up another couple of good results, and you're back in a good frame of mind.
We had around about 7-8 games left, and we had a 7-point gap from the relegation zone, and we thought if we could get a couple of results and they lose a couple of games, and it's sort of game on, but it didn't happen like that.
The month started well, and this match saw the Cherries return to form, with Brett Pittman getting his first Bournemouth hat-trick. Liam Feeney started on the right and caused problems from the outset for the Rochdale defenders. The first goal for Brett came in the 12th minute, this deflected shot looping into the net. Feeney continued to torment, and just 10 minutes later his hard work was rewarded with this great individual strike, his first goal for Bournemouth since joining from Salisbury. Big Fletch then turned provider for young striker Pittman. This was his second goal, 20 minutes into the second period. And Pittman then capped a fine personal display by scoring in the 90th minute, this the first hat-trick of his senior career. Elsewhere, Chester got their first point since Boxing Day, and Grimsby gained a point at Shrewsbury, making this 3 very important ones for the Cherries.
1,300 fans went to support Bournemouth in London, but it was the Barnet fans that were celebrating come the final whistle. Paul Furlong got his 200th career goal, and Bournemouth left London empty-handed.
With just 4 games to go, every point was massive, and with the visit of league leaders Brentford, it was going to be tough to get anything from the game. Over 8,000 fans packed into Dean Court, but Brentford stole the points just before the break. The result left Bournemouth just 1 point above the bottom 2.
All the way along since I came back, people were saying, oh, it's going to go down to Chester and it's going to go down to the Grimsby game, and I'm thinking, well, I hope not. And the way we were going at the time, I thought, no, it'll all be done and dusted by then. But in the back of people's minds, I think they saw the fixtures, looked at them when we started to claw back the points and said, right, them two are the 2 games, and they had them in their minds that we were going to go down to the last game. And as it was, the fans were right and we were wrong. I mean, the boys, we thought would all be done and dusted before the...
It was a big game for us, and obviously it was going to be it was going to tail the end of the season. We needed to get something out of that game. We needed to win it, and we didn't want to be going to Morecambe at the end of the season having to get something or even trying to win up there.
We knew they were massive games. The players, I think, responded magnificently to that pressure. They relished it, and they didn't play really with much fear, which I think is a huge testament to their character and their mental strength. We prepared the same that we always do. People say you're going to prepare differently. We didn't. We prepared the same. I think that's key. We take every game as a big game, and thankfully we got results in the 2 we needed.
Near on 1,000 Cherry supporters made the trip to Chester and were rewarded early on when Brett Pittman sent in a free kick which eluded everybody to nestle in the net. Anton Robinson added a second 11 minutes from time to seal a comfortable win, and with just 2 games left, the Cherries were on course for League 2 survival. Anton Robinson's first goal for the club couldn't have come at a better time.
I was happy with scoring the first league goal. I was more delighted with the win, obviously, but to score my first league goal in such a crucial game, you know, people were saying it was one of the biggest games in Bournemouth's history. You know, I'm glad to be a part of it. Before the game, the gaffer had a team talk, and he said, like, what players are going to be the ones that get remembered, put down in history. And I think every single player wanted to be that player, and I'm happy to get my name on the sheet, but it take no credit away from the whole team, because the whole team are magnificent. And this game and the Grimsby game, and yeah, I'm delighted with it.
People have said things to me all along, whether I've been shopping in the supermarkets or downtown with the missus in restaurants. People say, oh, you're going to do a flash, I bet you get the goal that does it. And I kept saying to my missus, I wish people wouldn't put pressure on me like this, because yeah, I dream about it. Every child dreams about it, whether it be at the top level or the bottom level of professional football. And yeah, I think it was written in the stars. It was a fairy tale moment that probably will top anything I've ever done in football, even the Millennium goal in 2003 scoring. I think this was a more important goal.
Ever since the Rochdale game, I had Grimsby was just hell for me personally, because I've had a bad wrist since Rochdale, and it just carried on getting worse. But also I picked up a bug 24 hours before the game. I was actually ill in bed on Friday. I couldn't train, and obviously I had to sort of get my fluids on and go to the game against Grimsby, and then my knee started hurting, so I felt like I was falling apart on the day of the most important game of the season.
So for the final home game of the season, it was simple: a win at home to Grimsby, and Bournemouth was safe. The game was branded the biggest in the club's history, but Bournemouth got off to a disastrous start when Nathan Jarman headed past the stranded Shwan Jalal. The Cherries started off quickly in the second period and were rewarded when Liam Feeney converted Danny Hollands' shot that somehow cannoned off of the bar directly to him. With time running out and the Chester result in the balance, It was left to Big Fletch, who popped up on cue to score the winner with just 10 minutes remaining. The greatest escape had been achieved. When the final whistle went, mayhem at Dean Court followed.
Get in there, Vincent! Yeah! Get up there! Celebration!
Got to be one of the most important games ever for me so far. Just the sort of pressure on the game, then walking out in front of like a full house at Dean Court is just unbelievable. Just there was so much at stake, like just I was relishing it really, but it was just amazing. And obviously for Big Fletch to get the winning goal to keep us in the division was just amazing. It was written in the stars, as they say.
Probably will top anything I've ever done in football, even the Millennium goal in 2003 scoring. I think this was a more important goal. And then last 10 minutes, people said, oh, I bet the last 10 minutes after you scored dragged on. I can't remember them, mate. All I remember was the ref blowing the final whistle and me running past everybody, ran up the steps. Like they do at Wimbledon, you know, when he wins the final. Go and see your family and friends, and I grabbed my missus and my little girl, Danny, and started crying. Big soppy git that I am. It was just an emotional feeling, you know, to think that I'd actually come back and played a massive part in something that'll go down in the club's history. That's what Eddie kept saying to the boys all the way along. You could be part of something that might never be seen again at Dean Court. And it was actually the feeling at the end was, I would say, it was better than the feeling when he blew the whistle at the Millennium Stadium. We got promoted in a different way, and like I said, that memory will live for me forever and ever and ever.
Well, in contrast to the disappointment at St Mary's, jubilation at Bournemouth, who completed a great escape. Having started the season with a 17 points deduction, the Cherries were 9 points adrift when Eddie Howe took charge at New Year. But victory in their final home game ensured safety in League Two.
How
fitting it was that Steve Fletcher, the 37-year-old whose career with Bournemouth began 17 years ago, should score the match-winning goal. It was his 100th for the Cherries.
Yeah, written in the stars, I suppose, wasn't it? To come back in January and the doom and gloom around the place, to see the place rocking today in front of nearly 9,000 people, it was awesome.
Visitors Grimsby were also in danger of going out of the Football League. They'd scored first, but ended up having 2 players sent off. Liam Feeney had levelled things up before Fletcher's landmark winner launched the celebrations.
Bournemouth's trip to Morecambe on the final day of the season became a nothing game, but Eddie Howe's men wanted to finish the season on a high and give the travelling fans the opportunity to celebrate. Joel Ward scored his first Bournemouth goal. Liam Feeney's strike made it 2-0. Before Brett Pittman made it 3 just before half-time. Pittman finished the scoring with his second in the 69th minute. What a way to finish, what a season. This is the Great Escape 2, the greatest ever escape.
I've had 3 different managers. I've had players come and go and not knowing whether the club's going to be surviving from day to day, the different chairmen in charge or no chairman or whatever, people potentially going to take over. There's been so much going on in one season, it's been unbelievable.
It's the greatest moment of my career, you know. The thing that made it really seem real was when you had fans coming up to you actually thanking you for, you know, because, you know, these fans have some of them been coming their whole lives.
Everyone says it's the Great Escape, and when it was the Great Escape, it was starting on -17, like we said at the start, it was just it was sort of so hard to stay in the league.
To come up to us and say thank you, you know, meant the world, you know, because it made them happy. So it was just a fantastic feeling to know that we'd done it.
That means everything to me, because it means that Bournemouth is still in the Football League. Didn't bear thinking about, you know, the alternatives. I'm just delighted that the club remains in the league, and we can hopefully start on a level footing next year with everybody else and have a good season.